Welcome to the Thriving Artist Podcast, where we share strategies and support for artists to thrive.
We know that the art world can feel like a lonely place, and we want to provide a network of support, impactful strategies, and an abundance of encouragement to help you grow your authentic art career.
We're your hosts. I'm Jamie Smith.
And I'm Kaylin Butine, and we are also the co-founders of the Thrive Together Network, a community of female and non-binary identifying artists and artists who are caregivers.
We truly believe in community over competition, and we're so glad you're here. Enjoy this episode. Welcome to this episode of the Thriving Artist Podcast, friends. We're really glad you're here. I'm one of your hosts, Kaylin Butine, and as an artist, I find it really hard to not feel the pressure to constantly post on social media. Anyone else?
I'm Jamie Smith, and I feel that as well. I'm your other host. I find it really challenging to not always check my phone during transition moments in my day. When I'm on a task, I'm okay, but in those moments, it's an addictive little thing that just pulls my hand towards it. So no surprise, today we were talking about phones. We were talking about these distractions that can take us away from our art practice, but also our lives. So this is really important to me as a new mom. It's something I'm thinking about a lot. Of course, when it's just us, I don't think we care as much, but when we have someone watching us constantly, it becomes very important. So
Yeah. And I think too, like, you are in this phase where you have this new baby and you're trying to like set up these habits. For me, I'm at this different place where I have an almost 12-year-old kid and he has his own phone now. You know, it's like a old crappy phone that like doesn't work well, but like it's just this like phase of thinking through like, wait, what do we feel about social media? What do we feel about boundaries with our phone? How are we like thinking about this as artists, as people? And I think this is an especially big topic for artists because we're entrepreneurs. We're people who are sharing about our career. We feel like we need to constantly be engaged with our audience, right? Like more than, folks who maybe go to a job where they're working for like a different company that's like not them, like it doesn't represent them. Like, they might be tied to their phone in other ways, but for us, it's like this identity, that like pulls us back in, and it's so much connected to like our business. We feel like we always need to be like building and producing and being consistent. These are like kind of keywords, and it's just really hard because we're also humans and we want to have boundaries with this like addictive thing.
Well, and it feels like often for me that I can't make maybe healthy choices or I can't make new habits because I do feel this pull and pressure to be on Instagram to know what's happening in the art community and to see new work. And it's also where I connect with a lot of like artists from our community. And we also then have to post for as an artist, but for Thrive Together Network. So it's really complicated because it doesn't sometimes always feel like I can just say it's a work thing because it's also a life thing. So I also think that we talk a lot about studio habits and studio practices. And so I think it's easy to romanticize the day before cell phones and just getting lost in the task or in the studio. And now we're having these conversations of like, how do we put like reminders on the phone, or like how do we like use it as a timer to concentrate? Like we're using it as a tool as well. So anyways, all to say is that we feel like this is a complicated topic and we wanted to just talk about toe dip into it. We're not gonna solve all the problems here, but we are gonna toe dip into it.
Yeah, we're dipping our toe, but we're also like, you and I are, because this is our life, right? Like we think about this is our career. I think you and I have really had to grapple with having healthy boundaries around our phone. And I'll just be really vulnerable and share too that I think running a business with somebody else who lives 3 hours, or, we're in a 3 hour different time zone. Like, the way that you and I run our business is through our phone, like
Yeah.
the way that we are friends is through our phone. And, there's like times that I'm like wondering if Jamie got my message because I got to send that email or I got to do that thing. And so phone boundaries are something that you and I think about a lot because, we care about how we spend our time with our family. We care about how we're showing up in our life, but also we want to show up for each other. And so,
Mhm.
it is like something that we are just sharing from our own experience and what is working from us, what is working for us. There's a lot of complexity to this conversation, but it's also like a very personal thing. I think you and
Mhm.
I care about this a
Well,
lot.
I go through phases where I've literally multiple times been like, I'm getting a landline, the phone literally goes away at, 9 to 5, the phone's away. But
Hmm.
then it is true, especially for you and I, that sometimes we need to talk through an idea and that needs to happen at different times. And then
Hmm.
I also need to make sure that like my family can get a hold of us if they needed to for some reason. And so I go through all these. Yeah, this is something I
Yeah.
think about a lot, basically.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
and so because we've put a lot of thought into this, we had a conversation about like what are some like tools that have helped us feel like we can have a good relationship with our phone. And that's
Hmm.
what we're talking about here is we're going to share 5 healthy phone boundaries that are working for us because we don't live in a society where we can just completely disconnect. Like we have kids, we have dependents, we have community members that we're in touch with. We need the phone, but we also need boundaries with the phone.
Hmm.
So we're just going to share some boundaries with you, and we would of course love to hear other boundaries that work for you. I think this is like a great point of conversation to get inspiration from others and to talk through other ideas. So please feel free to use this as, like send this episode to a friend and say like what do you do? Like how do you have boundaries with your phone? So the first boundary that we want to share is to try focus filters. So this is like one that I've like, kind of been sharing about this with a few people because it's like a light bulb like went off the past like 2 months for me. I've always known about the do not disturb filter that you can use on an iPhone. That's like, I mean, right now we're on a Zoom call and we're recording, and I always put my do not disturb on, right? So that I'm basically in this like mode where a text or a call isn't going to come through unless it's an emergency. But I didn't realize that you could like customize those filters. So you can actually go in, and I'm speaking as an iPhone user, but I'm sure there's like a way to do this for Android too. But I basically Googled like how to customize focus filters on my phone. Essentially, you just go to focus. Within your phone settings, the settings app on your phone, you go to focus and then you tap the focus that you want to add filters to. I have one on mine that's called personal. It's like a little like leaf icon. I think you can actually change the icons. And so my personal filter is set to be on every day from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And it's kind of the way I use this filter is I see it as my like, I'm working right now and I don't want the distractions from everything else. I want to stay focused on my tasks, but I also need to be available to a select group of people who may need to get in touch with me. So that focus filter, I have it set basically as do not disturb, but I will still get screen notifications if my husband texts me or calls me, my son who has a phone, my parents, my kids' schools. You can go through all of your contacts and you can basically just select who can get a hold of you. And then all other like notifications are basically sent to like they don't show up on your lock screen.
Mhm.
They're sent to
But then you
silent.
go in when you decide on your
Yes.
terms, you go in and you have all your texts and your WhatsApp is sitting
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like if I am, 10 a.m. on a Tuesday and I'm like, wonder what Jamie's up to. Has she responded to my message yet? I just click on WhatsApp
Yeah.
and your message is right there. But it's not popping up as like a notification, pulling me out of the task that I'm doing.
Well, and that's like, I feel frustrated that I feel like we've been trained now to like it's like a physical reaction. It's like I see
Mhm.
my phone light up and it's like I have to know.
Mhm.
And those are the things I get scared about for my kid is like that addiction that is going to happen so much younger.
Mhm.
But the anything I have read very little about parenting yet. But everything is like I think comes down to like you have to model it. Whatever you
Yes.
want
Oh,
instilled,
totally.
you have to do it. If I'm telling her, phones are addictive, but I'm sitting there addicted to my phone, it's never going to, anyways, why would you? Why would you listen to
Right.
that?
Right.
So I love um that idea of a filter of just like calming those like literal like neurons firing to
Mhm.
be like someone wants you, open up your phone, can calm that, and then you get to choose to go into it. And I mean I did very similar. I took off all my Instagram
Mhm.
notification, like I have no notifications on my
Right.
phone for my apps. When I first obviously got my phone, it was like so exciting to see an email pop in. Now that would be a nightmare scenario, so all of that is turned off.
Right.
But I like that you've almost second layer of it turned off your text notifications unless it's an emergency call kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
same. I only receive notifications from basically like communication, like WhatsApp and text and call.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to say too, to wrap this point up, that you can actually have multiple focus filters. So like I have, a sleep filter that every night at 8 p.m. until like 7 a.m., I think, like basically my filters kind of just like overlap, but like that filter is like a harder filter because usually I'm with my family we're home, I don't need to hear from anybody at that point. And, it's nice to like customize these things and think about like what kind of flow or what like access do you want people to have to you throughout your day and set
Hmm.
your phone to kind of like line up with that.
Hmm.
It's cool. It's like all included in your iPhone and like
Yeah.
I only recently found out about it, so I'm like I'm loving it.
That's great. Yeah. And again, just like these are all on the same thread as our second tip. Because we talk so much about, I keep talking about relating it to Instagram, which I just feel like is the ultimate like
Mhm.
addictive doom scroll place. And one thing this has come up from our social media boost group that we do every Tuesday. And a member started using only their computer for social media and other similar phone tasks, which I
Mhm.
think is such a good boundary. So that is
Mhm.
boundary number two is using your computer whenever you can, because it just takes you out of this popping in and scrolling and bad sleep hygiene and all these things
Mhm.
that this all creates. I also love the idea of this, and I have tried it and I need to just like as we're talking about it, I'm like realizing how useful this is because I need to go full force and just get the Instagram app off my phone because for me, part of what I feel torn with my phone habits is that it feels like work and life are so integrated. Where
Mhm.
I have friends that don't do work, they work a normal job. They are the muggles and they don't,
Mhm.
Instagram is not required for their day of work. So they
Right.
actually, like a friend has completely deleted it, isn't on it, doesn't care, doesn't think about it, and goes to the internet for recipes and she calls it a day.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I feel torn because I can't do that. But this actually using your computer kind of puts it in that this is a work thing.
Mhm.
So I'm on my computer doing work. It's where I'm going to write that newsletter we've talked about. It's where I'm going
Mhm.
to check the network, like all these things. So why wouldn't I include kind of social media in that as well? So it's how I use Facebook now because I don't
Mhm.
use it at all. I use it for Marketplace. So
Mhm.
it's on my computer. So I'm thinking I'm going this direction, Caitlin.
Well, and I
This
think
is a
too,
light bulb has come on.
the computer too is like a thing that I just think the symbolism of like if you use a laptop, like opening and closing the lid,
Yeah.
right? Like you like there's times in my day where my laptop just sits open on my desk, but when I close down for the day or even for like a few days for the weekend, like I'm not usually on my computer like from Friday afternoon to Sunday evening. It's like that symbolism of just like closing the lid. So I think adding that kind of ceremony into this
Hmm.
idea of it becoming part of an admin task that you do on your computer, and you could get to like detach from it, rather than, this thing that's like you said, it's like a work-life balance. It's all there in the app,
Mhm.
right? You're sharing who you are, you're sharing your work, you're sharing, and it just sucks us in so easily. And then,
Yep.
I'm like watching a reel or a video of like a day in the life of a mom in Copenhagen at 6 a.m. when I first woke up, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like,
Well, and that's the thing is like I think about because my husband doesn't have Instagram or Facebook and could care less, but he loves to watch YouTube videos of
mhm.
the most random of things, particularly like antique roadhouse and Roman coins that are found. But I was being a creep and I was watching him because I was watching him going through it and he's still scrolling, he's still ingesting all of this content, which someone probably people would have issue with. But I think the difference for me is that because my personal worth in so many ways is tied to my business of Thrive, my
Mhm.
art business, and I know the people on my Instagram, I know
Mhm.
these artists and they're amazing. The scrolling is personal and like the mom
Mhm.
in Copenhagen, I'm a mom too. Like I'm sure all that content's on YouTube, but my husband doesn't know any of these people. He's
Yeah.
not like trying to be someone that goes to antique. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Like it's very removed in a way that I
It's
realize
pure entertainment.
it's entertainment. It's like
Yeah.
watching Netflix. I don't know these people. I'm not
Right.
trying to do any of these things. Whereas I realize that my part of like I'm thinking through like why I don't want to
Mhm.
be scrolling and doing these things on Instagram because I find it's like, oh, I should make this thing. I should art wise, or I should make cookies, even though I hate baking and would never do it. But for some reason, I now think I should at 11 p.m. at night. Like
Yeah.
all these things like get to you. They
Yeah,
enter
because
the mind.
yeah, because like you said, it's our identity. Like it's a way that we're sharing ourself. I also think too that like as you were talking, I'm like, Instagram for me is not just pure entertainment because it's my community. It's like
Yeah.
every time I open it, the hundreds of artists that I'm friends with, we all have access to each other. And like that is a beautiful thing, but that is like energy that you are
Yeah.
giving out. And like imagine like you couldn't physically, like let's say we pick up our phone 10 times in a day and open Instagram and suddenly like have access to dozens of artists that we're friends with. You couldn't physically do that if you were to walk
Mhm.
into a room
It would
like
be so
each day.
overwhelming.
It'd be
Think about
so overwhelming, right?
energy. Yeah.
But like we think that like because it's just like we open the app and we flick our thumb up and like our wrist like gets to go in and we're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. It's like that's still pieces of us that we're giving away.
Yeah.
And I would just rather do that, like spend 1 hour on my computer and do that and be intentional and give the love, but then close it down and like
Yeah.
have that boundary, you know?
Man, we're only on tip number 2 and
I know. I know.
I've got some action steps here.
All right, so let me move us forward before we get carried away. Tip number 3, for 5 healthy phone boundaries. This is one that many people have heard me talk about before. This is a real personal one for me. But a huge thing that has helped me to have better boundaries with my phone is to remove email or non-essential apps. So, just kind of related to what we were talking about with social media, email is such a like admin task for me. And about 4 years ago, I think it was like in the pandemic, I actually took the actual email app off my phone, just like deleted it. And I thought it's like when I went vegetarian, I was kind of like, I'm just gonna try this for a little bit. And I've just never looked back. Like I've not one time thought I should re-download the email app to my phone.
Mhm.
Never. I've never thought that. I got this idea. I was inspired by Elise Joy, who's somebody that I follow on Instagram. She's actually off Instagram right now. She like deleted it and said goodbye.
My
Um,
girl, my
I
girl.
know. But she kind of had shared, going through this process of how she took the email app off her phone because for her, it wasn't so much that like she was actually using email on her phone a lot, but it's again the notification. Like you see the email come in and you're thinking about the email. Like, let's say like a client emails and is like, oh, I want a little more blue in that painting or whatever. It comes in like at 9 a.m. You can't get to your computer and like write a nice thought out, lovely response to that client until like 2 p.m. Well, guess what I'm doing from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. because I saw that email at 9 a.m.? I'm thinking about it. I'm composing the email in my head. I'm like obsessing about like, is the client mad at me? What's like all of these thoughts, this wasted mental energy. I don't actually write the client back until I'm going to sit down, open my computer, and like do my nice composed email. So, what email for me on my phone was doing was just taking me out of the present moment that I was in. And it was pulling me into this headspace of all of these email conversations and responses that I felt like I had to like engage with. And I was also like rushing to get to the computer. Like it was like, oh, I know that email's there. I gotta like go get to the computer to respond to it. Now, of course, like some of you might say, well, why don't you just respond on your phone? Like, again, for me, it's like I want a boundary there. I want it to be a task that I sit down, I have a specific time that I do this thing, and I don't let it hang over me all day. And that's what like removing email off my phone, I don't obsess over like responses in the ways that I used to. And that response doesn't deserve 5 hours of processing.
And
It's
the reality is that we as artists, or even what we do community building for artists, is none of this is life or death. It will
right.
not make a difference if that person gets a 9 a.m. response or a 2 p.m. response.
Right.
And all it's doing is making it feel life or deathy to us.
Right.
It invokes, like, I have no science behind any of this, what I'm saying, but I do believe these are physical things that are happening to us.
Yes.
And they're definitely chemicals, hormones that we're releasing to cause these reactions, or else it wouldn't work the way it all works.
Totally.
So all you're doing is pumping that through your body until that happens. So
yes.
I like that. I mean, I never respond on my phone to emails. So, but
all you're
I've
doing is
really,
thinking about
yeah,
them then.
I've never really, I guess sometimes it eases me because I'm kind of like, I check and I'm like, oh, we're all good. Like, I don't know so I'm going to play with it. I might delete it and see, because I don't know if it would make me be like, oh, I got to go open my, like, check the computer. I don't know. So I got to like think about that. But I'm definitely changing how my notifications was my biggest game changer for my phone, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
let me just add one thing. Like the nice thing is that if you can always pull up a web browser on your phone and log into your email that way. And so like I have been in times where like for example, last week we were at Universal Studios. I didn't load the right tickets to the Universal Studios app. I needed to access my email. Well, if you're somebody who deleted the email app off your phone, I just pull up Safari, I type in Gmail, and I log in, and I can still access my email. It's just that I'm not using my phone as a way to engage with my email. It's like they're in an emergency situation, but I'm not like thinking about email all day, because it's not on my phone. So,
no, I love that. That's great. Okay, our fourth suggestion for healthy phone boundaries is to take days off social media. I think this is one of those ones that I think is easier said than done. And I think because I'm now on this new kick, I think getting rid of my app and using the computer would actually make this possible, because when I'm on my computer, I'm in this like conscious state. It's like I'm working, I'm making decisions of how I use my time. When I'm sitting around and I'm scrolling and I wake up and I'm in Copenhagen with the mother of three that lets their children just sit on a bench in the cold. By the way, they say that you should do that with infants in those places on Instagram. And I was like, I'm not leaving my baby outside in a stroller. And so though that is when that app is there, it's just hard. So maybe for those days you delete the icon right off your phone to like take those breaks. But
Mhm.
having the weekend or having a certain time where you can't log into it, it does make a big difference.
Yeah, I know somebody who she has the app on her phone every other week, and then every other week she
Mm,
deletes it. So like 1 week on, 1 week off.
yeah.
For me, I'm pretty much a stickler for like I'm not on it on the weekends, but I'm not as good about deleting it. And so there are those moments where and all in all of this, like I don't think you and I are beating ourselves up for like scrolling. It's just we see the like addictive qualities that has, and you and I would rather like do something else with that time. It becomes like
Mhm.
a coping mechanism for stress. It feeds into all
Well,
these
I
things.
think about the times that I've had like creative breakthroughs or I've been like, and it's presence. It
Hmm.
is presence. And I feel I'm never with the ability to scroll, I'm never bored. And so then I
Hmm.
never get into the presence. And I think that's why I love travel so much is because I've often traveled where I typically don't buy like a data plan and I just like take my phone and then when I have Wi-Fi where I'm staying, but I just think of like I'm sitting places and why do I like that? It's because I'm present and I'm experiencing it. And I don't
Yep.
want to live a life where I only feel that at specific moments.
Yep.
And I think having the child really like shows those, like it just
Yep.
emphasizes that. Whereas before that, it's like, I just felt like no one was watching or caring. And I was just like, why not? And
Yeah.
now I just feel differently about that. And so, yeah, and I get that it's a good way to relax, and I get that there's like community and learning and all those things that happen. Um, but we kind of talked about this the other day at Boost Group. I'm just like, I don't feel that social media, Instagram in particular, has evolved to anything more interesting or
Hmm.
involved. It hasn't helped my life in a new way. Like it has at different points, but I'm like, I'm feeling very stagnant with it. It hasn't become anything better. It hasn't
Hmm.
bettered me. And so why am I still doing the same habits kind of thing? There's my rant.
Yeah.
There's my
And
rant.
and we're not saying like get off it. We're just saying like if you feel that like stress, that addiction that we have sort of confessed to feeling, like here's some boundaries, here
Totally.
like just as with anything, like our message is always like to empower you to like be the boss, right? Be the boss of your phone, be the boss of your art career, be the boss of like the way that you use social media. Like cuz so often like we just fall victim to like these systems, and we have to
Well,
remind ourselves that we're in control.
and we're telling you, 5 things because it would just be kind of a boring episode if we talked about one thing. So we made, 5, but it means maybe you like one and you're going to try it. And then,
Hmm.
or maybe you just like the idea of talking about it right now. So
Hmm.
don't feel pressure to change. Like, again, all of this is is exactly what you said. It's how you are engaging in your art practice and your life.
Yeah. All right. And so I want
Final
to
tip.
I want to wrap up with one more thing that has really helped me. Our fifth tip is to get a phone basket or like container that kind of like sits in your home or maybe in your studio. I actually bought this cute little vintage basket that I thrifted. It sits on my kitchen counter. And my idea for this basket is that from like 4 p.m. to 8 or 9 p.m., the hours where I want to be present with my family when my kids are home from school and we're doing like mealtime and like I'm with my partner and all that. That is when the phone goes in the basket. So the basket is kind of like this physical reminder, this like representation of the boundary that I want to have with my phone. And I just think it's really helpful because I see it every time I walk into the kitchen and I'm like, oh yeah, my phone is supposed to be in the basket right now. Because that's like a value that I have set for myself that, like you said, I want to be present with my people, like
Mhm.
in those hours. And I think too, like I know we've shared our perspective a lot in this episode about why our kids are inspiring us to like have better boundaries with your phone, but like you are worthy of presence, you know? Like
Mhm.
if you're somebody who lives alone or you don't have kids or you have a partner, like I think we all just as humans can relate to this idea of like wanting to be present in the moment where we're at, whether that's just with ourselves or it's with other people we love. But I think like, you know, that's what we're really trying to say here is that like our time is so valuable, and important and, you know, like put some boundaries around that phone use if you want to feel more engaged with your
If
life.
you want.
So
Or
yeah,
just
if
like
you want.
scroll away, go to Copenhagen in the morning, go to
That's
France's
great.
French mummies in the evening, whatever it is. Like it also at different times in my life, my phone was like a huge point of inspiration and community. And I think again, we talk a lot about seasons, and there's seasons where you really need that and want to be hooked to it. And but it's good to have ideas of how to like change that because it is a very addictive feeling when you're sucked in. So we
Yes.
thank you so much for being here. We run a community. We talk about this stuff all the time at thrivetogethernetwork.com. Every Tuesday we do art and tea sessions, and after we do what we call boost group, where we all meet and just kind of talk casually. And we actually go on Instagram and look each other's work, comment, like, and share, as ways to kind of get that work seen. And
Mhm.
again, we want, if we're going to do these things, let's support each other in doing them. So that's kind of our tactic to it. And we've both been very like, if we just post for that Tuesday, we feel good. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's all important.
Yeah. But again, like Boost Group is kind of a work task. Like it's a time that we set aside to do social media. And it just feels so good to like plug in because we know the timer is going to go off and we're going to be done.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's like we have a boundary around it. So that's
Mhm.
one thing I love about Boost Group. Again, if you want to join our community and get in on conversations like this and join with other artists who are just trying to like be good humans too, those are the kind of things that we're thinking about and processing in our community of female and non-binary artists. You can head to thrivetogethernetwork.com to join us. We have a membership program, and you always get 2 weeks free, to try it out and see if it's something that you're interested in. So we would love to have you. Thanks for listening. As always, we're here for you. We're cheering you on, and we believe in the work that you are doing as thriving artists.